Good evening to those of you joining us in Israel um, and Europe, and good afternoon to those of you watching from North America. My name is Paul Gross. I'm a senior fellow at the Menachem Begin Heritage Center in Jerusalem. Those of you who are regulars to this webinar may notice that my backdrop is a little different. That's because I am not in my office at the Begin Center. I am in my home in Jerusalem because as things currently stand, I may have to take a break from this webinar to assist my wife in taking our children down to the bomb shelter. So if we do get a siren during this webinar, please stay on the Zoom. I and our guest will have to depart your screen, and when we return, we'll resume the rest of the the rest of the webinar. So please do stay with us if we have to do that. Okay, so let me just say this is the latest in a series of webinars that we've been doing with the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. And when we put this together, we obviously wanted a discussion about Iran. That's always important when we're having a broad conversation or series of conversations about the Middle East. And the original title was Iran's Disastrous War, meaning the post-October 7th war and its aftermath was disastrous for Iran in that it decimated Iran's allies in the region, Hamas, Hezbollah, and of course the toppling of Assad in Syria, and of course last June the Israeli and then American assault also greatly weakened Iran and revealed its weakness in the face of Israeli air assault. Now, of course, as it happens, the timing of this conversation lands us in the middle of, I think, a historic moment, certainly potentially historic moment. And the title, as you can see on your screen, the Islamic Republic on the brink, because we are in the midst of a potentially existential situation for the Islamic Republic. And we have with us one of the really formidable experts on Iran here in Israel, Dr. Alexander Grinberg, who is a major in the reserves in the IDF Military Intelligence Research Department. He has degrees in Middle East and Islamic studies and Arab language and literature from Hebrew University. He's currently working on his doctorate in Iranian history at Tel Aviv University. I've had the pleasure of hearing him several times on Iran, and let's just say he really knows his stuff. Alex Greenberg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. I'm not a doctor yet because I have not accomplished my PhD on Iranian history, so I don't want to take titles that are not mine yet.
Soon to be.
Everything is hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
It's rather difficult to talk about Iran because everything is happening way faster than one could imagine. The association, of course, is not only historical but also biblical, is biblical historical, and it cannot be accidental because I was certain that it would start on the eve of Purim to make it even more symbolic. Persia, Haman, Khomeini, Khomentashen operation. And so I will talk a little bit about several crucial aspects, and of course everything will be shortened for the sake of brevity. First of all, it's the operation is called Epic Fury and Shagat Ariel, Lion Roar. It is not accidental either because you see here on the right, it's a logo of the Imperial Iran, Shir Khurshid, a lion and a sun. So also two lions join their efforts together. And just as first war update. So strategic objective is destruction of ballistic missile infrastructure, neutralization of nuclear enrichment capability, elimination of RGC naval reach, decapitation of regime leadership, and dissolution of regional proxy assets. The goal of the operation is, first of all, dissolution of the Iranian security architecture, because everything is very fragmented, and although the IGC is not capable military might, still it has many branches, and it is dispersed across Iran, which remains a huge country. So everything is very difficult, also due to the size of the country. And there is a partition of work, I would say, between the US Army and the IDF. The IDF works rather in the west and the north of Iran because it's closer to Israel together. By contrast, the US Air Force or Navy works in the south of Iran and also eastwards, because Hornet jet fighters take off from air carriers that are closer to Iran, they're in the Persian Gulf, and hitherto the U.S. Forces have destroyed literally all the Iranian fleet. Israel decapitated the Iranian leadership, also security leadership, and I will elaborate on that a little bit later. And to the time being, Israeli Air Force has carried down over 1,600 sorties. All that already is way more than all the sorties of the Operation Amke, I forgot its English title. Sorry. Munitions expanded. It's also for thousands, and the U.S. Air Force, respectively, you see those numbers, but it is about unprecedented air operation since the Second World War, because it's insane in terms of numbers and capacities. For example, just to make it clearer, a usual sortie of a fighter jet lasts no more than 30 minutes in general in the world. To get to Iran, a fighter jet needs over 2 hours and a half. Of course, it should refuel in the air, which necessitates the tightest cooperation with the US Air Force or Army or Navy, which makes the things also very complicated. Just we could see 3 American planes were downed in Kuwait by friendly fire, because when many fighter jets are in the air, it's very complicated. And of course, all that would have never been possible without American supply of munitions, fuel, etc., etc. The logistic support. But in general, everything is simpler when work together. And from today morning, Iris Dena frigate was sunk near Sri Lanka. It's the newest Iranian warship. Here you can see its matrix. It's a crew of 180 people. And what is strange that, again, I don't pretend to understand in naval affairs, but it seems that it was not an American sub that sank it, although the Defense Secretary said it was an American sub, because everything looks a little bit weird. Something is off there, because American subs that escort the air carrier group, are designed to launch missiles. It's, in fact, submarine missile cruisers. And the air carrier group is currently in the Gulf. The American subs of this type are not designed to shoot torpedoes, and the ship was torpedoed. And it was not an official statement of the U.S. Navy, as should have been usually, but it was like, for me at least, maybe I'm wrong, that look, it's us, it's not the guys you think they did that. Okay, so either way, it's great. But now we're coming closer to the most complicated issue, which is the transition of power, power games, etc., etc., which remains hitherto shrouded in mystery because really no one can know for sure what will happen. The Khamenei is out. Khamenei is out, but it doesn't mean the end of the system because Iran has never been a usual dictatorship in the Russian or Egyptian meaning of the term, because it is a very complicated system, like octopus. There is a head of octopus, but the octopus itself has many tentacles. And his power was constitutional, ideological, and also coercive. And Khamenei set in motion various networks of power, clusters and networks of power. It's not a strictly a vertical system, which is called in Russian vertikal vlasti, vertical of power. It's very simple, like top bottom. The system of power is clear. In Iran, it is way more complicated. So what happens now is that they elected a formal interim council according to the Iranian constitution that stipulates the establishing of such an interim council. It consists of the president Masoud Pezeshkian, who is a merely decorative figure. He's just a nice guy. He's a cardiologist, a heart doctor who was told to be president, so he's a president, but he's zero charisma. It's not even interesting. Ghulam Hossein Mohsenejei embodies the oppressive face of the Iranian system because he is the chief of judiciary. And he was in charge of mass execution of political prisoners in '88. He's a bloodthirsty Iranian jurist. He has real power. The third person, Ayatollah Reza Arifi, he provides clerical legitimacy and anchors the religious establishment, but paradoxically, in the Iranian regime, this clerical or purely theological aspect has lost any importance. No one gives a damn about clerical legitimacy. As we say in Hebrew, כשיש חברים אז לא צריך פרוטקציה. When you have friends, you don't need to pull the strings. Yet the real power game happens on the right, what you can see here, real power nexus. Because the people on the left are only formal. Among them, among this triumvirate, only AGE has real power. By contrast, those on the right, together with AGE, are the most powerful people of the Iranian regime. It is Mohsen Ghalibaf, who is RGC Parliament Bridge. Mohsen Ghalibaf has been hitherto Speaker of the Iranian Parliament. Beforehand, he was the mayor of Tehran, head of Tehran police, and in the past, he was a fighter pilot and the commander of the RGC. Larijani is elite faction moderator in the sense that Larijani is, I would say, a patrician or the patrician of the Islamic Republic. He's very educated. His Persian is eloquent. And he knows how to pull the strings. He has only one disadvantage. He hates those birdie chimps in the RGC. He really treats them as I said, because he really disdains them. He's very educated. His second brother was also the head of the judiciary before AG, Sadek Larijani. Larijani has a PhD in philosophy, general philosophy. His PhD is real, and his brother has PhD in mathematics, so they're very educated people. And they cannot get along with these primitive, violent thugs of the RGC. Yet it doesn't mean Larijani is somehow moderate. He's a bona fide Islamist, loyal to the system, but on a sociological level, he's different. Ghalibaf is the most important because when we read all the reports about possible power transition in Iran, Ghalibaf is never evoked. And my Russian and Iranian experience tells me that the person who is never evoked is the most important. Why? Because Ghalibaf has both proven military and civilian managerial skills. Also, the Rear Admiral Shamkhani, but Shamkhani, the chief Khamenei's advisor, he died with his boss, and he's out of the game. Ghalibaf is the most capable of all these people because of his double use capacities. Now, what happens next is very difficult to foresee because there is a constitutional facade, because this formal council is stipulated by the Iranian constitution, and the Iranian constitution is important because there is a tradition of so-called constitutionalism in the Iranian Republic. It means that Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, draws inspiration from its establishment as a republic, because shortly after the revolution in 79, they carried out a referendum. Are you for the Islamic Republic or not? The overwhelming majority answered yes. This is the difference between Iran and, let's say, Afghanistan or Pakistan, who also call themselves Islamic Republic. And Iran is a revolutionary country, having a very resilient ideology that remains unshakable, which explains everything. But again, these formal niceties and facades cannot overcome real power games that depend on the personal capacity of each member of this triumvirate on the right to manage ties and connections and networks with the IRGC. Given that the IRGC has never been only a military force that protects the regime. First, it is a real octopus or an empire that controls various aspects of life in general in Iran. It is, for example, concern of construction companies, Khatem al-Anbiya, that is a civilian in principle, but it controls all the construction projects in Iran. It is also a system of secret funds of Bunyad. It is about billions of dollars. Of course, no transparency there. And all this system was controlled by, overseen by Khamenei and controlled by IGC, etc., etc. It is not only a military unit. And the most important difference, I would say, between IRGC and KGB or Stasi. When I try to to compare that historically, KGB and Stasi were always fulfilling their function as Shield und Schwert der Partei. The shield and sword of the party. They were strictly subordinate to the Communist Party of DDR or the USSR. They were scared of party control, and there was party control. For example, during the late Soviet years, among Soviet dissidents, one could find a brochure, a clandestine samizdat brochure, how to behave on an investigation of KGB. It proves that they were law obedient, Soviet law obedient, but it was Soviet law, but they maintained some legal norms, because if FSB in today's Russia or IRGC catches you, so no brochure or rules will help. This is the difference, that today FSB, KGB's here, owns Russia, and IRGC, by the same token, they're not protectors of the system, they are the system. That's the point. And like only people like Kalibaf, Larijani, and Deji together can run this whole system, meaning they can like control, get along with RGC. And so what can happen? It's a charismatic clerical authority that exists no more. There's no charismatic cleric after Khamenei, who in turn was never charismatic cleric either. He was not even a real Ayatollah. He was upgraded. He was only Hujjat al-Islam. It's a lower rank in comparison to the Ayatollah, but who knows? And today, even before the war, a real authority shifted toward the security elite coalition beyond visible state architecture. And now, many like less dependent on charisma, it relies on coordination, intelligence, and coercive apparatus, and all that can how to say that, it explains that Iran is not a real it is not a democracy, of course, but it is not one dictatorship that everyone fears one leader, because everyone owns his or her status to the leader, but the leader depends also on all these networks. And what can be next? It's of course no liberalization. It's only collective elite management. And assembly of experts, well, it was bombed yesterday evening. I don't know how many survived. Assembly of experts doesn't play any real role. It is, I would say, roughly a geriatric department at the hospital, because it's like a real, very old shed clerics. I'm not sure how many of them are lucid. But they are needed to elect a new leader formally. It is about 7 clerics. They're very, very old. They should convene and elect a new leader. The only problem is that this body is mission tailored. Khomeini, the founder of Islamic Republic, founded it. And they convened only one time when, upon Khomeini's death, they convened and elected Khamenei, not because they elected him, but because Rafsanjani convinced them to elect Khamenei, hoping that his formal number, that Khamenei would become formal number one, whereas him, Rafsanjani, will be a real number one. But Khamenei overplayed everyone. And the question is, can this coalition maintain unity under mounting US and Israeli attacks and domestic pressure? Because all of those scenarios and musings about power transmission or games are fine. There is only one problem with them. They don't reckon for the current conditions that are those of war. Everything is under bombing. For example, they already elected Mojtaba Khomeini. Khomeini's son was reportedly dead, but he is still alive and kicking as a leader. But it's clear that he will be hunted down. So it's not everything becomes more difficult because it's very difficult to control all these networks and systems under bombs. And of course, while I'm talking about that, the overwhelming majority of Iranian people are happy with the Israeli and American strikes because it looks really insane when you hear thousands of people chanting Bibi June, Bibi June, Bibi or dearest, I don't know how to translate it correctly, and Bibi Bezan Bezan, Bibi hit hit. And all the more everyone knows that neither American nor Israeli planes are going to strike civilians. They're coming to bomb their JISS facilities. And one can say that hitherto the operation is unfolding even better than it was planned. But it is not everything is as happy and nice as it sounds. There is another very important aspect that Israel bombed in the I think on Shabbat or even on Sunday, Beit Rahbari. Beit Rahbari, it's the Supreme's leader office, which is the hidden nerve center of the Islamic Republic. Here is the compound that became similar to Gaza. And this office is extremely important because it is a non-elected, unofficial and informal government body, but this body makes the most important and crucial decisions. It consists of a very structured system. There are religious, traditional bureaus, political, social, and cultural bureaucracy, Office of Advisors, advisors to Khomeini. There are military advisors also. This office has also secret military think tanks, for example, that you can see sometimes on Telegram. And supreme leaders' representatives, this, for example, Namoyande Vali Fakir, the representative of supreme leader, is a real system of supervision over all the Iranian institutions. It is similar to the Soviet system of Politruk, something like that. It means that in every Iranian institution, there is someone whose title is Namoyande Vali Fakir, representative of the supreme leader, who serves as eyes and ears of the leader, like he reports upwards the so-called hierarchy. And this way, Khamenei controls and oversees everything because he cannot oversee everything himself, so as representative. And this is why it was very important to bomb and destroy this office. And as you can read in Financial Times article about the penetration of Israeli intelligence to all the traffic lights of Tehran, due to that, they managed to calculate when the leader and all these workers, these are only heads of all the branches, are there. How did they do that? They saw that the driver of this or another high-ranking official parks his car near this compound, and it was done. And finally, Khamenei was certain of his immunity, not without logic, because he thought that Israel would never dare to do that without American approval, and he was certain that America would never approve that. But he would, and that's why he convened all the others at this compound on Shabbat, which created an operational possibility and an indication that was approved by the US, and that was done. This is the reason for why the operation started on Shabbat. Instead of the eve of Purim, as they thought. And I think uh, this is yes, this is the end of my presentation, and yet there are some crucial aspects that must be mentioned. First, contrary to what I thought, I think intelligence officer must be honest and acknowledge his own mistakes. First of all, it was not a mistake, but it was I thought that Hezbollah wouldn't join seriously the effort of Iran, but I was wrong. Because if 2 days ago one could think that they did something, they launched some rockets like to show their presence because they're still Muqawama, the resistance. But now, since today, we see that it is no more formal. They launch their strategic missiles. IMHO, it has a strategic goal. Their launch of missiles is tightly coordinated with Iran. And as far as I understand, maybe there are some people here who understand better than me in rocket science, in literally rocket science. The salvos of the Iranians have some logic. I think the most probable is that they're not wasting all their arsenal. They shoot here and there with the goal to detect our vulnerabilities of our air defense system and to improve their salvos. It means they shoot, they launch, they learn our reactions, and Hezbollah also helps them doing that because Hezbollah has some capacities that Iran doesn't have, and everything is coordinated. Of course, it doesn't come even close to what Hezbollah could have done prior to the pager operation. Yet it is a serious annoyance to Israel, which perhaps hastens our ground maneuver in Lebanon. It is doable. It's not that big deal, but still it is an effort. And also several other things contrary to what I expected. The Iranians are seemingly going nuts because they started shooting on all the adjacent Arab countries. But here again, there is more logic that one might think at the first glance. I suggested that they would shoot on the Saudi Arabia, on Aramco. That I did expect that, but I never expected they would try to kill hen ponding golden eggs, I mean Dubai. because despite some grievances and disputes over three islands with the Emirates, Emirates never did anything against Iran, and half of Iran's business elite resides in Dubai. And moreover, they launched missiles on Qatar and today on Turkey and in Cyprus. Cyprus implicating the Greece to send a ship. I forgot the ship's name, but it is the ship. This Greek ship's name is the name of a Greek ancient Greek warrior who fought the Persian Wars. So it's also symbolic. But the mere fact that they hit Cyprus, and they said overtly one of these secret advisors of Khamenei, who writes the secret military think tank of Beit Rahabari of the office, wrote on Telegram, anonymously of course, but I identify because of his style, that let all the European countries understand and realize they won't stay untouched by this Israeli American, Zionist American bullying. So this is and Cyprus, of course, Hezbollah was implicated in that. And but on the other hand, again, it's there is a logic. The logic is very simple. It's either to decrease and disperse American firepower, meaning that the Americans will be busy more with protecting the skies of Arab countries because I don't know the number of American interceptors is also like it has problems. And the other idea is to make the Arabs suffer so that they pressure Trump to stop the aggression. It won't work, but still there is logic. And the third aspect, regime change. Look, I don't know how the regime will be changed. It is true that no one has ever succeeded in changing a regime or in toppling a regime without boots on the ground. But on the other hand, I would like to emphasize it is not physics or a precise science or mathematics. When I say that no one has ever succeeded in changing a regime without boots on the ground, it means there is no precedent, but it doesn't mean it is impossible. For example, we're hearing that the US is trying to help the Kurds, so it may be a beginning of a wonderful friendship because the Kurds are the only capable force in Iran who have some experience with weapons, and the Kurdistan in Iran, the province of Kurdistan, may serve as a springboard for further operations in Iran and better coordination with other resistance groups. That's all. So thank you for your attention. Now, questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. That was very comprehensive. We have a lot of questions from the audience. Before we go to them, I'm just going to ask one question myself. Um, so, in terms of the stated aims of both the United States and Israel, from America, the big focus was on the nuclear program and ending the nuclear program. It was, there was a lot of talk about, the talks were going nowhere. We were being taken down the garden path effectively by the Iranian negotiators, and this is to end the Iranian nuclear threat. And then you get sort of some mixed messages, as you sometimes do with the Trump administration. One person says something a little bit different to someone else, but effectively there seems to be a focus on the nuclear program. Israel, when Israel says, when the government or the IDF say, as they said today, we expect this to continue for maybe another week or two or whatever, what do you think Israel would regard as a a successfully completed operation? What does that look
Uh,
like from Israel's perspective?
okay, so I would say first, all uh, all the operations of this type worldwide are also dictated by what is called in French raison d'etat, meaning some vital interests that everyone understands them, but no one dares to utter them publicly because it is not done. So everyone articulates only part of its obvious, of the person's obvious interests. But for Israel, it's clear. For Israel, it's two things. It is the destruction, total destruction and annihilation of the Iranian ballistic missile arsenal, launchers, and fabrics and underground missile cities, what is called in Persian, Shahr Mushiki. They just built some underground cities to manufacture missiles. I don't know how many of these facilities can be destroyed by our Air Force and which of them need a treatment by vitamin B2 or B1. I don't know, but it's possible to do. But again, everything lasts so much time because Iran is a huge country.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And for Israel, it would be enough. The nuclear program it is destroyed. What was aired and speculated immediately shortly after the Rising Lion, I forgot the it's
Yeah.
to the 12-day war.
In
It
June.
was it was rather a political speculation aiming at Netanyahu and Trump, and also exploiting the public ignorance. Because what do you mean by destruction? If someone means a vacuum that physically empty, like crater after a bomb that nothing exists, it is impossible. I think that, again, without any pretension to understand in nukes or something like that, it means total break up of functionality of this nuclear chain. It was done. Because again, in principle, yes, they now, of course, they won't be able to restore the nuclear program. They did restore their ballistic arsenal. It is doable. But if you decide to rebuild your nukes, it requires so many efforts, so many resources, so many qualified scientific staff and I think today in Iran, being a nuclear physicist is a dangerous
Yeah, there's
job.
not much.
So
Your life insurance policy is pretty
yes,
expensive.
so so it's not doable nuclear program, and for Israel it would be enough, but for America, of course, it wouldn't be enough. And I think the goal is a regime change, but before achieving that goal, it is necessary to get done with this regime. So I don't think the regime will be toppled in the
Mm.
sense, in a very narrow sense, in the meaning that if someone expects that the regime will lay down the arms or will sign a capitulation like in Nazi Germany, it will never happen and will not also dissolute themselves. It won't happen. But it doesn't mean the regime will keep existing. It is possible to destroy physically this regime, and it is possible to cut off and paralyze its chains. It is possible to break up its spine. This is being done. Next, it's indeed depends upon the will and determination of the Iranian people, because neither America nor Israel cannot organize and build everything for Iran. Unfortunately, with all due respect to the Iranians, whose language and culture I admire, they have this feature, like they call it in Persian, masuliyat napeziri, a shrinking responsibility, that they think that someone will take out chestnuts from the fire for them, but it is impossible. So you cannot fight this regime that massacred thousands of its own civilians without weapons in the hand. It's impossible.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to some of the questions that we've had. We've had a number of different questions. Some are similar to others, so I might try and combine a few. There was a question about you mentioned the Kurds. So there were a couple of questions about whether the whether there might be the possibility of some kind of Kurdish autonomy being created in a similar way that there was in Iraq and Syria in different ways. And related to that, I'll just combine these two questions, is about the other minorities in Iran, of which there are many, of course, that you know of, Azeris, Baluchis, Arabs, others. To what extent are these non-Persian minorities committed to the idea of a unified Iran? If you can
Uh,
answer those two questions.
yeah. So, okay, I understand it very well. I don't know very well the questions where they come from. So, for starters, there is an independent Kurdish country, which is a Kurdish autonomous region of Iraq,
Yeah,
with the capital in Erbil. It is
Erbil.
formally part of Iraqi Federation, but it's only formally. De facto, it's a complete independent country with its own army, Peshmerga.
Mm.
For that reason, there is no need for the Iranian Kurds to have an autonomy, and no one will let them to have another autonomy while it is adjacent to the Kurdistan. But the Kurds, they have only several small clandestine groups that are secular and normal. It is Komala and Pejak. They're very small, they're not significant. And it is not that majority of Iranian Kurds want autonomy or split from Iran. No. But they do have these small groups that have a military experience. And overall, it is good to cooperate also for Europe and the West to cooperate with the Kurds because the Kurds they're not secular like in Syria, but they're not a Marxist terrorist movement either. I want to make it clear. PKK, it's true they're neither Hamas or Islamist murderers. They're not anti-Semites. They're nice guys. But still, it is a mafia. It is a real terrorist communist movement that kills the Turkish soldiers and civilians in Turkey. It's not they're not nice guys. And to cooperate in the Komala and Pejak in Kurdistan, they do have some ties with PKK in Kurdish, Syrian or Turkish Kurdish movement, but they're not exactly PKK because, again, the political culture of Iraqi Kurds is completely different. Never forget that the Kurds of Syria and Turkey and the Iraqi Kurds are, in fact, two different nations. There is no Kurdish Zionism, unfortunately. There is no Kurdish Zionism because they speak two different languages. Kurds in Turkey and Syria speak Kurdish language, Kormanji, written by Latin characters, which is not mutually understandable with Sorani, Kurdish
Mm.
language written with our Persian script, and it is close to Persian. Also, the Syrian Kurdish is close to Persian, but it is not. It is farther. The distance between the two languages is farther between Russia. Difference between Russian and Ukrainian, for example. It's not.
Mm.
It's not the same. And the political culture is completely different because those Kurds are in Iraq. They are Muslims, but they're not Islamists, and PKK are like communists. And but regarding the last part of the question, no, I want to completely discard this stupid idea, which is very widespread in Israel. I really don't understand where it comes from. The idea says that Iran is the Persians in Iran curse everyone, but there are plenty of nations and ethnic units in Iran. Once the regime is toppled, they split. Again, this idea is simply, it's factually, there's no basis. Everyone can check in the Wikipedia. Can full starters. It's very difficult to employ Western or American notions of minorities for Azerbaijanis who count for more than 49 million.
Alex, sorry, just to clarify, what exactly are you saying is factually is stupid and factually incorrect?
The
What
idea
specifically?
that nations of Iran,
Yeah,
Iran is a multi-ethnic state,
sure.
that they will split from Iran
Right.
or will
Okay.
tear Iran apart
Right.
as
Right.
once they have this possibility. Again, Azerbaijanis count for 49 millions approximately. The Kurds are only 3 millions. Baluchis are a tiny tribe of 2 millions and other 2 millions in Pakistan. Baluchis and Kurds are Sunnis, Azeris are Shias. It
Yeah.
is true that they are discriminated, but each minority is discriminated differently, to paraphrase Tolstoy's phrase about unhappy families. For example, Azeris are completely incorporated into the Iranian power, so the leader was like a quarter Azeri or something like that,
Mm,
but they have no right to teach their children in Azerbaijani language,
mm,
which is Azeri Turkish, not Persian, and they can not have media in their language. But there is no personal discrimination. By contrast, there is a glass ceiling for any promotion of Kurds, because the Kurds and Baluchis are Sunnis,
mm.
but there is no problem to use in everyday language and media Kurdish language because the Kurds are ethnically Iranians. The Kurdish language belongs to the Iranian family language.
Interesting.
Finally, it's true that all those groups have grievances towards the regime, but their grievances is towards the regime as an Islamist regime. All those people define themselves as Iranians. It's clear. There are some sporadic or separatist movements, but again, it does not represent the bulk
Right.
majority of each minority.
So bottom line, whether the Islamic Republic remains or whether it's replaced by some other regime in Iran, Iran will, in your view, remain a unified Iranian nation with
Yes,
a
of course.
multi-ethnic nation, as you
Yes,
speak.
multi-ethnic nation, even if,
Right.
you know what, even if the Kurds of Baluchis decide to split from Iran, okay,
Mm.
you know, took 2 million or 3 million, 3 millions minus 95 millions, it won't alternate a lot nature of Iran.
Right. There were a couple of there were some sort of technical questions earlier, where from the beginning of your talk when you were talking about the Iranian Navy. One question was about how many ships, more or less, how strong is the Iranian Navy, and the other was the differentiation between the Iranian Navy, the Iranian military, and the IRGC Navy.
Uh,
How does that work?
it is exactly as the differentiation between the RGC, Sepah, and the regular army, Artesh. The
Hmm.
same thing is with the Navy. There is Niruye Daryoye Artesh, the naval forces of the army. It's big warships that were sunk. I think there are something around like, if I'm not wrong, between 12 and 20 vessels. Most of them were sunk. There are also two intelligence ships, and it's not a serious force. And there is a Niruye Daryoye Sepah RGC Navy that consists mainly of speedboats. of speedboats
Hmm.
with missiles. So it's not a tremendous naval force, but it can annoy civilian vessels, etc., etc. And it has not still been sunk, but it will be, I believe. But again, a speedboat, it's not a serious threat for American warship. And the same is between the RGC and the army. But I want to, like, I foresee maybe a possible question. If someone thinks that the Iranian army, Artesh, will somehow revolt against the RGC, again, it is
Hmm.
baseless because the current Iranian army has nothing to do with the Shah army because the Iranian army underwent dozens of purges. Today,
Hmm.
ideologically, it's 100% Islamist. Vahidi, Farmandeis, how they call it, the Joint Staff Commander, because a joint with of the IRGC and the army. The missiles are common, so they join their efforts. He is an artillery officer of the army. And all the rest, it's true that the army grudges the RGC because the RGC get more budget, but it's only that. All the rest of the army is compulsory service, draftees that they reside in there like caserns, and it's not a force that someone should rely on.
Do you think, just on that question of the ideological reach of the regime, when you think about, 1989, the collapse of communism in Europe, um, in a lot of these countries, you think of Poland and Czechoslovakia and others, the the there were within the institutions of the state, whether it was the government, the Communist Party itself, the military, the police, other things, there were people who had basically long since abandoned the actual ideology, right? It didn't mean anything to them anymore. They weren't true believers. The impression you're giving us, I think, is that that's not the case in Iran. That the ideology of the revolution is still very pervasive throughout the regime and the institutions of the state. Is that accurate?
I would say no. I would say it's the truth is lies somewhere in
Okay.
the middle. First of all, the Eastern Europe is not a good example because there the communism held only due to the Soviet bayonets. When
Yeah.
the Soviets left, so okay, and in the USSR is a better example because in '91 I came to Israel in '91, several months before the final collapse of the Soviet Empire. That in August '91 there was no one single person in the whole Soviet Union who would be ready to protect the Soviet regime with weapons in the hand. It was completely empty of any content. It is not the case in Iran because there are still people who believe this ideology. But I would say that now the ideology is not even that important because, again, when someone sticks to the power, he never gives it up. It's just a normal political behavior everywhere. Like
Mm.
if you own some social ascent or status, you want to maintain it. But I admit that I underestimated the severity of the analysis of several Iranian anonymous analysts who said the following, that this system of RGC is a natural selection of psychotic sadists. I didn't want to believe it because I thought that the Iranians, it's true, they send the others to become shaheeds, but then themselves no. So they like to live. Like all the animals are equal, but there are some animals who are more equal than the others. No, I was wrong. So you see, they are real when I hear and see a politruk, so to say, of the IRGC, who explains, listen, guys, you should never feel the remorses of your conscience when you kill the people because those who you kill are mohareb, the enemies of people or of Allah. And it's true, just never mutilate their bodies because it's un-Islamic. But so, when I hear and see that by my own eyes and ears, it is very serious. And they outsource it's a mafia state in the Russian style of Kadyrov, that the state cooptates crime systems, and it resorts to the good services of literally like the bottom of the criminal world, not necessarily organized crime. They just outsource murder. Why are
Oh,
they doing so? Because they don't dirt the uniform, because you never know and who killed. And when they kill people with machine guns, there is no reason to cast doubt on the testimonies of the Iranians who lost their relatives. And when they blackmail people and extort money so that people can get the dead bodies of their family members, you cannot fight, you cannot behave with this regime as with Václav Havel in Czechoslovakia.
mm. Yeah, I understand. Okay, we're a little over time. Can we have a few more minutes with you? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
We have a lot of questions. So I'll just ask a couple more questions or ask other people's questions. Um, so three countries that I want to put into one question and you can answer them as you wish that have been mentioned in the questions. Turkey, in the context of Iran, as you said, attacking Turkey. In the question, there was a specific question about whether you think Turkey could actually get involved, especially if the regime falls, whether Turkey could see its own interests in getting involved in Iran in the way that it has in Syria. That was one question. And then the other thing is about Russia and China, two, one great power and one wannabe power, I suppose. That the potential for them to get involved either in trying to end the conflict or seeing themselves in some way um, as mediators. What's your view of those three countries, Turkey, China, and Russia?
Well, Turkey is, as always, very complicated because Turkey, as one is supposed to say now, has legitimate, serious concerns over Iran. It is true that Turkish media, of course, Yeni Shafak, Sultan Erdogan's mouthpieces, they exacerbate anti-Semitic hysteria, arguing that Israel and Mossad are behind everything. But I must acknowledge that they are right to a certain measure. If you just dissipate their conspiracies, because, for example, when Turkish media argues that Ankara is the next after Tehran for our air force, of course, it's like it looks insane, but it does express their genuine fear of Israeli dominance and hegemony. It's true because they are empire or wannabe empire. They cannot stand another power. But and Of course, it's look. We should never forget that what we see is unprecedented because Israeli firepower and aviation. It's insane for any military officer because you see this. It's frightening. If this things turns against you, we have a
Right.
simple answer: just leave us alone. Don't annoy us. Don't mess with Israel, and we'll be safe. But what regards Iran, Turkey has both interests in Iraq. For example, it's oil, it's Mosul, which is a Sunni city. They don't like pro-Iranian Maliki. Don't know what will happen now with Iran. And of course, PKK has some bases in Iraq. It frightens Turkey. And on the other hand, Turkey fears a possible flux of refugees from Iran because they extrapolate it from the crisis of Syrian refugees. But we should never forget that Turkey accepted 2 million Syrian refugees. They would be happy, like anyone else, to get rid of them and send them back to Syria, which explains also Turkish interest for Syria. In general, Turkey doesn't want the fall of the Iranian regime because of unexpected and undesirable implications and consequences for Turkey, starting from this possible immigration crisis. I don't think it will happen, but it is a real normal concern. It's not hysteria. And
Right.
it's in general, we should understand that normal country is not Israel. We're a tiny country that our thought is never geopolitical. Just we want to be left alone. That's all we want. But the countries, historical countries, of course, historical empires like Turkey, they always want more. And regarding China and Russia, well, they have zero, and no country wants destabilization in another country, even if this country is not a friend or a frenemy, because it's always worse. You don't know with whom you will have to deal. But China and Russia have zero interest in helping Iran. I also oppose to this American coined thinking in models, that there is a nexus stretching from Moscow via Tehran and Beijing. The mere
Mm.
idea that Russia or China help for free someone else is insane. Only the idea that Russia helps Iran only to screw, pardon my French, America it's insane. China treats Russia and of course Iran as a gasoline station with much oil and gasoline, many missiles, and not so clean toilets. It's real. This is how the Chinese see Russia. And of course, Iran, because all the three countries never accept the principle of equal partnership. If there is an agreement of MOU between Russia and Iran, between Russia and China and Iran, etc., it will be only China will decide what will be or not implemented. By the same token, Russia and Iran they have never been friends, of course, Russia and Iran, because Russia seized the Iranian territories, and there is a saying in Russian that the love and friendship between Russia and Iran, it's like два ежика, love of two hedgehogs who want to make love. They want, but it hurts. This is what I hear in Russian, so it's really not the thing we should fear.
Interesting. Okay. Final question. I apologize to those whose questions I didn't get to, but just because I know a lot of people in Israel and also in the United States and elsewhere, and we have a lot of obviously audience members here who are not in Israel but are in the US or Canada or the UK. Um, they saw what happened to the Iranian protesters, the way they were as you mentioned, were massacred by Iranian regime forces. And in addition to wanting what's best for Israel, of course, as Jews and Israelis and Zionists, there's also a desire, I think, for many people here to wish for the freedom of the Iranians. And we had a specific question actually about whether, in your view, there's any way at all that, whether from the United States or Israel or elsewhere, that the people of Iran can be assisted through any kind of getting weapons to them, being without actual Israeli or American boots on the ground, but there is some way in which they can be assisted in fighting back against the regime.
I'm sure, yes, of course. I think this is the only thing that can help and must be done because, again, it is for democracy, yes, but with these thugs, you cannot, convince them verbally. But this type of help, of course, cannot be debated on air and publicly. And you
Mm,
must also, it also concerns the issue of protection of the sources, etc., etc. You must have people that can do that. But again, it also depends on the will of Iranian people, and because the revolutions in Russia and Iran in 79 and all other countries succeeded not because of the protests, but because they had a clearly organized movement that had a goal.
Mm.
But I think I still have hope because one should never discard American capacities and skills when America seriously wants
Right.
something and when the thing serves the great American interest, it may succeed. All the American attempts to bring democracy with bombs to Iraq failed. They failed each time when America tried to realize Wilsonian dreams. But when America worked to achieve an American interest, real and this touchable one, it succeeded, like in Chile, in Allende, in other, even in Mossadegh in Iran, etc. So it is possible because when you have a real skin in the game,
Mm.
you may succeed because you plan better. What is the scene in the game? Look, besides, of course, of democracy and freedom, again, not democracy in the sense that Iran will become Prague. No, it's enough. It is enough to have a normal regime that awards minimal that doesn't kill people. It's enough. Nothing can be worse than
And
this
is and
regime.
isn't supporting terrorism and aggression in the
Exactly,
Middle East.
exactly. And
Yeah.
because Iran is, so I think I'm sure, I'm certain that the American administration thinks of that because Iran is too huge, it's too important to let it, go down. Okay, because it's 90 million people country, and to make this country switch side, it will create a huge change in the balance of power in the Middle East in favor of the West, the United States, and also Europe and Israel.
Yeah.
It will be great if it succeeds.
Okay, that's a positive note to end on. Thank you, Alex Greenberg, very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
For those of you in the audience who aren't on my mailing list, you can email me, paulg@begincentre.org.il. I wrote it in the chat for information about our English events. We actually have three more of these webinars with the JISS. One on Qatar in a couple of weeks, and then subsequent ones on Syria and Lebanon, and then on Turkey. So those I think will be equally fascinating and important. But this, of course, was particularly resonant for the moment. So for the Israelis in the audience, stay safe, stay close to your Mamadim and Miklatim, and thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks again to Alex Greenberg. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.